check out our streaming schedule for this week. We've got tons of content in terms of the NFL and college football, as we're going live just about every single day this week. So make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single moment where we go live. And now, on with our feature presentation.
A while ago, and I truly mean a while ago, sometime around 2020, I made a video about Super Bowl VII and one instance of trash talk gone right at the Super Bowl. Lloyd Mumford was a quarterback on the Miami Dolphins, and with his Miami team set to square off against an aging veteran under center in Washington's Billy Kilmer, Mumford decided that it was a good idea to take Kilmer to town. He called Kilmer overrated. He said that Kilmer had a noodle arm of a sort so he couldn't throw, and said that it wouldn't be a problem whatsoever stopping him from doing anything. Turns out, Mumford was right, and his trash talk paid off. Kilmer had one of the worst performances by any quarterback ever during a Super Bowl, as Miami won 14-7 thanks to Kilmer going just 14 for 28, completing only 50% of his passes for 104 yards, or 87 net passing yards if we take the 2 sacks into account, no touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and a passer rating of 19.6, which is worse than if he did nothing but spike the ball into the ground on every single play. The low points of the game for Washington were on special teams, after cgiulianihpu thought he was a quarterback, so it's not as though Kilmer led a touchdown drive or anything along those lines. From the first minute to the last minute, he was crap. Lloyd Mumford backed up everything he was saying. The Miami secondary shut him down. He followed the golden rule of trash talk. You better be able to back it up. And if you want to learn more about some other interesting things that have happened throughout the history of the Super Bowl, like what we saw with Lloyd Mumford back at Super Bowl VII in 1973, then this is the place for you, because we talk about all things NFL history all the time with a new video and a new live stream every single day. So if you like that sort of stuff, then be sure to hit that like button down below, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single video that we post on the channel. Thanks in advance for your support as we try and hit 70,000 subscribers. Well, I bring that up because when trash talk goes wrong, it's laughably bad and gets remembered all these years later for the wrong reasons. And the story we have for you today is another instance of that. Because this player right here is Denver Broncos defensive back Bernard Jackson. All things considered, he had a pretty solid career in the NFL. For a 4th-round pick, he played in 118 games, starting 85 of them, and he recorded 17 interceptions, including 6 in 1978 with the Denver Broncos, finishing inside the top 10 of the NFL in that category that year. Jackson was a fairly solid player who had some success in Cincinnati and in Denver throughout the 1970s. However, he's not remembered today for any of his success stories. Rather, he's remembered roughly half a century later for something idiotic that he said before his first and only Super Bowl, and it deserves a deep dive for just how poorly it aged. Because this is the story behind what might just be, considering the circumstances, the dumbest instance of trash talking in Super Bowl history, and how Bernard Jackson's mouth led him astray. Before I talk about the actual incident in question, we need some context to understand the importance of the game at hand, and the opponent that Jackson's Broncos were going to face. It's January 15th, 1978, and we find ourselves down at the Superdome for Super Bowl XII between the Dallas Cowboys and the Denver Broncos. For the Broncos, this is not only their first Super Bowl appearance ever, but they do this in their first playoff appearance ever. This is the biggest game in Broncos history, and they're being led by Craig Morton, the 34-year-old quarterback who went from a Cowboys reject and a complete bust with the New York Giants 1 year prior to the runner-up in the MVP voting. For some perspective, what Craig Morton did in 1977 is like if Sam Darnold led the Vikings to the Super Bowl this season. The opponent for the Broncos? Goliath, as in the Dallas Cowboys, coming off of one of the best seasons in NFL history. This team right here was dominant in every facet of the game, and after cruising their way through the playoffs, including an NFC Championship win over the Minnesota Vikings, so you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner, the Cowboys were heavy favorites to win this one and were well in line to win their second Super Bowl in franchise history. If there was one thing that the Cowboys did not need, it was bulletin-board material. And yeah, we'll get to that in just a bit. But one of the reasons why this team right here made it to the Super Bowl, as you can tell, was the exceptional play of their passing game. Roger Staubach was a Hall of Fame quarterback in the making, and after a great season where he made the Pro Bowl, after finishing third in the NFL with 18 passing touchdowns, third in the NFL with 2,620 passing yards, and second in the NFL with a passer rating of 87, he had the Cowboys firing on all cylinders. The Cowboys were inside the top 5 of just about every major passing category that you could think of. And while Staubach was a heck of a quarterback, the guys he was throwing the ball to were not too shabby themselves. Of course, leading the bunch, he had the future Hall of Fame wideout Drew Pearson, even if it took him way too long to get inducted into canon. Pearson finished the season with a league-best 870 receiving yards, while also finishing inside the top 10 of the league in receptions. For his efforts, Pearson was named a Pro Bowler and an AP First-Team All-Pro. However, outside of Drew Pearson, you had Preston Pearson. He lost a lot of carries that year due to the emergence of rookie running back and future Hall of Famer Tony Dorsett. But he was instrumental in the passing game, recording 46 catches, which was inside the top 15 of the NFL, and posting over 500 yards receiving. Combine that with the great play of Pro Bowl tight end and one of the most underrated tight ends of the 1970s in Billy Joe Dupree, and the Cowboys had weapons to throw to. Was it on the level of the Steelers with their two-headed monster of Lynn Swann and John Stallworth? Of course not. But any sane person would say that the Cowboys had a good offense and some good weapons in the passing game. Well, Bernard Jackson didn't seem to think so. Said Jackson on the Cowboys receivers and the guys he'd be going up against on Super Bowl Sunday, "I just don't think they're that good. They really only have one threat, Drew Pearson. Golden Richards is an every once-in-a-while guy." That's right, the Cowboys wideouts were not that good. Absolutely genius thing to say right before playing the Cowboys in the Super Bowl. But Jackson doubled down by saying that not only were the Cowboys not that good at receiver, but there were quite a few teams that had better wideouts and passing threats than the Cowboys, including the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Baltimore Colts, and the Kansas City Chiefs. Throwing the Chiefs into the mix, considering their quarterbacks combined to throw 11 touchdowns and 26 interceptions, and considering only one player on the team even had more than 450 receiving yards, is kind of crazy. That's almost like saying today that Patrick Mahomes is not that good, and that Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and Derek Carr are better than him. Like there's clearly someone that does not belong in that conversation whatsoever, and it feels like you're really going low there. Seriously, in what universe is Walter White, Henry Marshall, Ed Podolak on the wrong side of 30, and Larry Brunson better than the Cowboys unit? What the heck kind of film are you watching? And if you're wondering whether these insane comments by Jackson made it back to the Cowboys, oh, don't you worry, they absolutely did. As if the Cowboys didn't need any extra motivation to beat the Broncos and win the Super Bowl, they now had it. The Cowboys took the high road, but they responded to those remarks and put it in the back of their minds. Said Drew Pearson, "I think Denver really does have a good secondary. They give you a lot of changeups, but that talking isn't going to help them. They have a good secondary, but the last time we played them back in Week 14, they talked and jawed. Class teams don't do that." I've noticed Jackson does a lot of talking. He could be in for a big surprise. He might be right that Pittsburgh has better receivers as a group, but he has to deal with us, not Pittsburgh. He had better be thinking about us. I believe we can play. Golden Richards, who Jackson criticized in his comments, saying that he wasn't very good, also took the high road, saying, "I think Jackson is an excellent football player. The Denver secondary is a good secondary. It moves well as a unit and gang tackles well. In a way, I can see where Denver might not think I'm much of a receiver. If they saw film of our last 5 regular season games, I didn't catch very many passes. It may look like I've been dropped from our offense." I love how Richards said, "Yeah, Denver's good and Jackson's not wrong. I haven't done a lot lately." He just nodded his head and accepted that he sucked. This was a Cowboy team that was clearly focused on the task at hand and wasn't going to let Jackson's trash talk get to them, even though they wanted to destroy him. The Cowboys took the high road, but Bernard Jackson did not, because he decided to open his mouth. As for whether this decision to open his mouth turned out to be the right one, yeah, it most definitely was not. The Cowboys destroyed the Broncos in the Super Bowl, winning the game 27-10. Defensively, the Cowboys were magnificent. Craig Morton started the game for the Broncos under center, and he completed 8 passes. The problem? 4 of them went to the Cowboys. So in actuality, Morton's stat line was 4 for 15 with 39 yards, or 19 net passing yards if we take sacks into account, no touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and a passer rating of 0.0, which is the literal lowest possible passer rating. You cannot be worse than that. Morton was benched in the second half as a result, which, if there was ever an award for the most deserved benching in Super Bowl history, Morton's got it. But even though the Broncos lost the game, was Bernard Jackson right? Even though his offense faltered, did Jackson, at the very least, have a point about the Cowboys' receivers? Absolutely positively not. The Cowboys threw the ball all over the place, throwing for 217 yards with 7 different players catching a pass. And it wasn't even like Drew Pearson went off as a supposed only real threat. He only had 1 catch for 13 yards. It was the rest of the cast that stepped up, the guys that Jackson was mocking. Golden Richards, the once-in-a-while receiver, he caught a touchdown pass. Billy Joe Dupree, the tight end that Jackson indirectly wrote off, he had 4 catches for a game-high 66 yards. Butch Johnson, the receiver that you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner, he had 53 yards and a touchdown. It was a complete team effort in the passing game. And you better believe that after the game, the Cowboys had all the time in the world to talk their trash and just destroy Jackson for those insane comments. Said Drew Pearson, Bernard Jackson can go study those films now and find out what kind of receivers we have. All he did out there was smile a lot. Butch beat him and Golden beat him. And that is true. The 2 passing touchdowns that the Cowboys scored both involved the safety, Bernard Jackson, the last line of defense, getting beat. It was poetic in many ways. Pearson also added, I think I'll send Jackson part of my winner's share. As Golden Richards, the man who caught the clinching touchdown in the 4th quarter, said on Jackson's remarks, he told me I wasn't very good and running kind of funny early in the game. I never heard another word out of him after that. Jackson was yapping a ton, but the moment he got beat and the Cowboys were destroying him, he was silent. He was eating a lot of crow. Ain't no fun when the rabbit's got the gun. And the Cowboys have the gun here. Bernard Jackson, in front of the largest television audience in Super Bowl history at the time, looked like a complete and utter fool. And oddly enough, despite literally everything I just said, it might not even be the worst trash talk in the history of the Super Bowl. For that, we've got to go to Super Bowl XXIX, which I did a video on that you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. In that Super Bowl, Stanley Richard, the cornerback on the San Diego Chargers, decided to trash talk Jerry Rice of all people. That's right. The greatest receiver in NFL history, Jerry Rice. He called him not very good. He thought he could cover him. 10 catches, 148 yards, and 3 touchdowns later in a game where the 49ers scored 49 points and won the Super Bowl. Yeah, Stanley Richard regretted those comments very, very shortly after. So what Bernard Jackson did was really bad. It might not be on Stanley Richard's level, but it was still really, really bad. So as a word to the wise to any players watching this video, if you're going to participate in Super Bowl Media Day, do not, under any circumstances, do what Bernard Jackson did. There is no reason to give ammo to another team right before a game when they've already got a ton of ammo. If you're going to talk trash, you better make sure to back it up. And not do what Bernard Jackson did against one of the best offenses in football. Anytime you open your mouth and screw up so badly that the other team, completely unprompted, brings you up as one of the reasons why you won the game because of the extra motivation you gave them, you know you screwed up big time. Because on this day in 1978, Bernard Jackson's comments on the Super Bowl at the Superdome turns out to be anything but super for his Broncos.
Be sure to like and subscribe if you have not done so already, as it helps the channel out a lot, and check out my other channels, JG8 for the history of college football, JG7 for the history of baseball, and JG9 News, where we talk about all things happening in the NFL. Join me every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, where we'll play live NFL trivia for cash prizes. And make sure to join me live, as we're on stream just about every single day. And thanks to all our Patreon members and our YouTube members for helping out the channel. See how you become a member and show your support financially in the description down below.